Hey folks, Bill here from Hot Tub University. And if you're watching this video, it probably means that you just got yourself a new hot tub. So first off, congratulations. Second, if you're like most people, you're probably feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now. Maybe a little bit of information overload. Because let's face it, the day you receive your hot tub is not only a really exciting day, it's also a very chaotic day. If you got your hot tub from a big box store or if you got it from an online retailer, it was likely dropped in your driveway. You had to get it to the backyard. You had to get an electrician. You had to get the hot tub hooked up. Even if you got it from a dealer, the dealer likely put it in place. He may have even arranged the electrician to come by. And maybe someone from the dealer came by and went over things like water chemistry and hot tub filtration, cleaning your filters, and so on and so forth. But there's so much information coming in such a short period of time that information overload is to be expected. That's why we did this video. The video is broken into two sections. First, we're going to cover some things that you should know when it comes to filling your hot tub, getting it ready for use, and so on. We're going to give you some tips and tricks that can help you make your hot tub experience more enjoyable, and maybe some things that you might want to consider just to make your hot tub operate better and make it better for you, make it a better overall experience for you. The second part of this video, I'm going to talk about water chemistry, and it's going to be basic water chemistry. Now, when I say basic, make no mistake, it will give you everything you need to know in order to make your hot tub clean and clear and enjoyable for you. Okay, first up, filling your hot tub. And the question that we get a lot is people will ask us, should I fill my hot tub from my well? I'm not on municipal water, I have a well, should I fill the hot tub from it? Well, it's not a great idea because you really don't know what the phosphate levels are. It could have some copper and iron and things like that in it. But if you do fill from a well, and quite honestly, even if you fill from municipal water, there's one product that we recommend anytime you fill your hot tub, and that is this guy. It's the X10 water filter. It quite simply, your water hose screws into the end of it. If I can get the end of this out. Your water hose screws into the end of here. Water comes out the other end. It'll filter out metals like copper and iron and things like that. I fill my hot tub every single time I use this thing. It will filter 10,000 gallons of water, so you're basically looking at roughly about 30 refills on your hot tub with an X10 filter. If you empty and refill your tub twice a year like most people do, that's going to refill your hot tub for the next 15 years. So it's 60 or 70 bucks. It's a great investment, and it's something that, in my opinion, every hot tub owner should own. Okay, filtration settings. If you have a hot tub that has a circulation pump, it means it's going to circulate and filter 24 hours a day. However, many hot tubs don't have a circulation pump, and honestly, I prefer a hot tub that doesn't, simply because the tubs with the circulation pump have a smaller pump and they're going to run for 24 hours a day, whereas the hot tubs without a circulation pump, you can actually customize your filtration more. Now by that, what I mean is that you will typically set it to run for 3 hours twice a day. However, if you have a hot tub party or something along those lines, the next day you can increase that 3 hours to 12. Clean your hot tub up quite a bit faster. That's not to say that circulation pumps are bad, it's just I prefer the flexibility to one that doesn't have a circulation pump. So dig into your owner's manual and learn how to set your filtration settings. Now, if you have a more complex topside controller, it may allow you to set the start and stop time and the filter duration. You want to set it for roughly 12 hours apart for about 3 hours. On the more basic control panels, you know, the type that have just a warm and cool button and maybe a jets button, then you will press a sequence of buttons to get you into the filtration settings. For example, on one of the more common Balboa packs, you will press warm and then you will press light, which will take you into your hot tub settings. You cycle through until you see the filter, which comes up FLTR, and then press warm or cool in order to change it to 1, 2, 3, 4, or it might show F1, F2, F3. Set it to 3. And now this 3 doesn't mean 3 hours a day. It means 3 hours every 12 hours. So what will happen is the tub will filter for 3 hours, the filtration will shut down, 12 hours later, it's going to cut in for another 3 hours. So, and here's a little trick. Because a lot of people who have these tubs constantly ask us, like, I'd like to be able to set when it's going to filter. Well, turn off your main breaker for your hot tub. Then turn your breaker back on and set your filtration cycle. Because when you first power up the tub, the first thing it's going to do is kick into a filtration cycle. 12 hours later, it will do the same thing. So if you want your tub to filter, for example, at 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. when everybody's awake, it's not going to wake anybody up, even though they're not really loud. If you want to run it from at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., then at 8 p.m., turn your tub off, turn it back on, and set your filtration rate. Okay, next tip. Keep your water at a constant temperature. Now that doesn't mean, set it at 102 and don't ever change it. It means don't turn your water down to 90 degrees or 85 degrees, and then when you're ready to use your tub, turn it back up again. Many people think that this will save them money on their electricity bill, but it won't. Here's why. A hot tub, the heater in a hot tub is not like a volume control. It doesn't have different levels. It will either cut in at full power or it will cut out. When your tub is set at a given temperature, if the temperature drops by, let's say, 1 degree, the heater will cut in, it will bring it back up, then the heater will cut out. Now, if you lower your temperature, for example, from 102 down to 90 degrees, you're going to save a little bit of electricity from that cutting in and out as it drops from 102 down to 90. Here's the problem. When you turn it back up, your heater is going to kick in, and it's going to kick in at full power until it gets all the way back up to 102 again. So you're actually going to burn more electricity coming back up than you are as the tub went down. And when you lower your temperature, you bring it down to, for example, 90 degrees, your heater is still kicking in and kicking out just as it needs to as the temperature fluctuates from maybe 89 to 90. So the only savings that you're getting are when the temperature is actually falling, and you're losing that and more as you bring the temperature back up. So your best bet, pick your temperature. Maybe it's 102, keep your tub round about that level. If you get in, it's a little too hot, turn it down a couple degrees, or you want it a little warmer, turn it up a degree or two. But keep it in the same basic temperature range. That is the most efficient way to use your hot tub when it comes to temperature. Next tip, and we get this question a lot. People will call us up and they will say, you know what, I got a lot of foam in my hot tub. The water is clear, but I've got a lot of foam. Now, foam can be caused by contaminants and bacteria and things like that, but it can also be caused by detergents in bathing suits. So how do you combat that? Well, get in your hot tub without a bathing suit. No, I'm just kidding. Although you can if you want to. With your bathing suits, the best way to handle them is to wash them in just pure water. Don't use detergents to wash your bathing suit. I mean, let's face it, you're getting in sanitary water, so they're really not getting dirty. Rinse them in some warm water, hang dry, but avoid detergents when it comes to your bathing suit, because no matter how good your washer is and no matter how good your detergent is, there's going to be detergent in that bathing suit. When you get in the tub, it's going to get in the hot tub water, it's going to cause foam. So next tip, don't use detergent. Okay, next thing, and this is actually not a tip, it's something that you need to do, and that's clean your filters. So take your filter out, get a water hose, not a pressure washer. Guys, a pressure washer will actually destroy the fibers in this filter. So just take out your regular water hose, spray it along an angle like this, and just rinse out any dust or bugs or anything like that might come out of the filter. Give it a good rinse like this, shake it off, put it back in your tub. You want to do that at least once a week. If you have a hot tub party or something like that, rinse it off, or preferably give it a deep cleaning, which we'll cover in a second. But rinse your filter at least once a week. Now, the second thing that you want to do with your filters is give them a deep cleaning. And you want to do this about once a month. If you use your hot tub a great deal, you entertain a lot, you might want to do it a little more often. If you only use your tub once a week, then maybe you can get away with 6 or 7 weeks. I recommend sticking to a given schedule. Do this once a month or so, and basically you just take your filter, you're going to get yourself a bucket of water, and you're going to use a product like this. This is Spa Marvel Filter Cleaner, the one that I recommend. You simply take your filter cleaner, you take a capful of it, you put it in a bucket of water, you put your filter inside it, and you might want to take your filter and give it a little spin like this, let it soak overnight. The next day, take your water hose, just give it a rinse off, same as if you were just rinsing your filter, shake it off, and put it in your hot tub. So deep clean your filter at least once a month. Your tub may not need it. If you don't use your tub that often, it may not need it once a month, but I recommend sticking to a once a month deep cleaning on your filters regardless. If you entertain a lot, or if you have hot tub parties, or if you have teenagers, or Junior let the hot dog in the hot tub, then you might want to do it a little more often, but at least once a month, give your filters a good deep cleaning. Okay, next up, one thing that I recommend everybody invest in when they own a hot tub, and that's a cover lifter. A cover lifter will, A, make your hot tub cover a lot easier to open. You can pretty much do it with one hand. It mounts on the side of the hot tub. You lift the cover lifter up. The cover gets held up on the side of the tub so water can drain off it. It's not lying on the ground. It's not being dragged across a deck or anything like that. They work very simply. They're inexpensive. They're easy to install. So get yourself a cover lifter. Your cover will thank you for it. Okay, a cover lifter. Folks, this is a cover lifter. It simply sits on top of the hot tub. You can actually move it up and down. It mounts on the side of the hot tub like this, and it can actually mount down below as well, but typically you'll see them mounted on toward the top of the hot tub on the side, and it simply has a pivot point right here. So what you do is when this is sitting on your hot tub, you simply open your cover, and you can see it folds directly over the cover lifter, and then with one hand you lift your cover up. Your cover is off the ground, it's hanging, so it can the water can drip off it, and it's nice and secure and actually gives you a little bit of privacy as well. Okay, to recap, when you fill your hot tub, use a good quality water filter. It will cause you a lot less problems down the road, whether you're on well water or municipal water. Second, learn how to set your filtration rate. Unless your tub is equipped with a circulation pump, then learn how to set the filter settings, because it can make a huge difference in your hot tub. Next, keep your water at a consistent temperature. Don't turn your water up and down. It will cost you more electricity to do that than it will to keep it at a consistent temperature. Wash your bathing suits without using detergent. Clean, plain water. Your bathing suits will still come clean simply because they're in a hot tub, in a sanitary environment. So don't use detergents with your bathing suits. Next, rinse your filters once a week. Get into a regimen of rinsing your filters once a week. And finally, give your filters a good deep cleaning once a month. We recommend that you use Spa Marvel filter cleaner, but any good filter cleaner will do it. Just make sure that once a month or so you take your filters out, give them a good deep cleaning, rinse them, and get them back into your tub. So with all that done, that's our tips and tricks. And now let's get on into water chemistry. Okay, before we get into water chemistry, there's one question that I want to address, and it's probably the one that we get more than anything, and that's simply the debate between chlorine and bromine. Now, there's a myth out there that bromine works better in hot water than chlorine does, and it is a myth. It's simply not true. The only differences between chlorine and bromine is that bromine will work at a slightly, an emphasis on the word slightly, a slightly wider pH range than chlorine will. Where chlorine is most effective is at a pH of between 7.2 and 7.8. Bromine is effective between around 7.0 and 8.0. So you get a slightly wider pH range, a little more forgiving with bromine than you do with chlorine. The only other difference between bromine and chlorine is that bromine cannot be stabilized. Both bromine and chlorine in their unstabilized form have a half-life of about 15 minutes. Which means that it will break down about halfway when exposed to UV sunlight in 15 minutes. The difference with chlorine is that chlorine can be stabilized, which increases this half-life into hours. You can't do that with bromine. Those are the only two differences between bromine and chlorine. So if you have a sensitivity to chlorine or a sensitivity to bromine, it gives you a reason to use one or the other, but beyond that, I tell people, look, use a good stabilized chlorinating granules, which I'll get into in a few minutes. And there's really no reason to use bromine unless you have a sensitivity to chlorine. Now, if you have a sensitivity to either chlorine or bromine, then I've got a solution for that for you as well, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, let's talk water chemistry. And before we get into water chemistry, there's one product that I wanted to point out to you. It's a product that I think every spa owner should use. I've used it myself for a number of years now. I swear by it. And it's called Spa Marble. Now, what is it? It's an enzyme-based product that you basically pour this entire bottle into your hot tub every 3 months. It's as simple as that. What does it do? Well, when it comes to sanitizing your hot tub, things like chlorine or bromine do a great job at dealing with the tiny single-cell bacteria and things of that nature. What they don't do a great job of is dealing with the larger organics, the multicelled organisms, the hair, the sweat, the things that come off your body that contaminate your hot tub water. Think about something. When you pour drinking water from the tap, those of you who have good quality drinking water, and I really hope you do, it's treated with about 0.5 part per million of chlorine. That amount of chlorine is actually more than enough to purify water and to keep it pure. Where chlorine struggles is when you introduce things like sweat, body lotions, skin oils, dead skin cells, all those types of things. And what Spa Marble does is it breaks those things down. So it allows chlorine or bromine to do the job it's intended to do without having to work overtime dealing with all these other things. So folks, if you haven't tried it, give it a shot. Spa Marble, to me, it's miracle in a bottle. You can buy it on our site. We'd really appreciate it. It's how we keep this site running. But no matter where you get it, do yourself a favor and use Spa Marble. All right, let's talk water chemistry. So water chemistry is basically the chemical sanitation of your hot tub. That's aside from your filter or anything like that. This is sanitizing your water at the chemical level, at a molecular level, getting rid of bacteria, getting rid of algae, things like that. There are 3 components to good water chemistry. There is balancing, there is sanitizing, and there's oxidizing. Before we get into those, there is one other thing that's not strictly related to the sanitation of your hot tub, but is critically important nonetheless. And that is the calcium hardness level of your hot tub water. Now, if you use a water softener, if you have naturally soft water, regardless, you need to make sure that your calcium level is at least 1 to 200 parts per million. Because if your water is too soft, if it doesn't have enough calcium, it's going to try to steal calcium from anything it comes in contact with. And guess what? That's your hot tub shell. That's your plumbing. It's your gaskets and your equipment. So for the health of your hot tub, make sure that your calcium levels are between 1 and 200 parts per million. And you only need to do this once. The first time you fill up your hot tub, you're going to set your water calcium, your calcium hardness. That's it. You don't have to worry about it until you drain and refill your tub. And in order to raise it, you simply use a product such as this, Cal Boost. Read the directions on it for the amount of Cal Boost that you need to put into your tub in order to get your calcium levels up. But you want them, I'd like to see them closer to 201, but they need to be between 1 and 200 parts per million. Okay, water balance. What do we mean by water balance? Well, it simply means the pH level of the water, because in all honesty, your sanitizer, whether it be chlorine or bromine, really only cares about the pH level. But there are a couple of steps to actually get your pH correct. pH is a scale that runs from 0, which is extremely acidic, to 14, which is extremely basic or alkaline, as some people refer to it. And it applies to any substance. It doesn't have to be water, but we're talking about your hot tub water right now. We want to get the pH level of our water between 7.2 and 7.8, simply because that's where the sanitizers work most effectively. Now, before we set the pH, we have to worry about the alkalinity level of the water. Don't confuse alkalinity, the alkalinity level, with alkaline water. Even though they're interrelated, they are 2 completely separate things. When water is alkaline, it simply means it has a high pH. It's on the alkaline side of neutral. Water that has an alkalinity level, a high alkalinity level, means that it has a high ability to neutralize acid. It's a buffering agent. It's your shock absorber for your pH. If you have very low alkalinity, then your pH is going to bounce up and down all over the place. So we want to keep our pH stable. In order to do that, we need to get our alkalinity level up. So we raise our alkalinity by using, guess what? Alkalinity booster. Now, you want to bring your alkalinity level between 80 and 120 parts per million. But there's a little bit of a catch here. If your water's pH is normal to a little high, balance your alkalinity to between 120 and 150. Not 80 and 120, which is the ideal level. Take it to 120 to 150, and here's why. When your water is neutral to high pH, when you add your alkalinity booster, this is actually going to raise your pH a little bit more. Your next step is going to be to use a pH reducer to bring your pH back down. So if you balance this correctly to between 80 and 120, and then you reduce your pH, that takes your alkalinity down some. You could have alkalinity that's a little too low. So what I recommend is, unless your pH is very low, which is unusual, balance your alkalinity to between 120 and 150, and then use a product such as this, pH down, or it's called pH reducer or something like that, to bring your pH to between 7.2 and 7.8. That will also reduce your alkalinity and usually bring it down to between 100 and 120. If your alkalinity ends up at 125, 130, and you know what, with the test strip, you're really not going to notice that. But if your alkalinity is a tad high, it's nothing to worry about. It's going to come down naturally. But balance your pH to between 7.2 and 7.8, and your alkalinity should be between 80 and 120. So your water is now balanced. The next thing you have to worry about is your sanitizer. Okay, now that we have our hot tub water balanced, let's talk about sanitizing. And your sanitizer is basically your bromine or your chlorine. As I said earlier in the video, I much prefer chlorine to bromine unless you have a sensitivity to it. I always recommend chlorine, and specifically I recommend chlorinating granules, not tablets. And to get more specific, I recommend stabilized chlorinating granules like these here. They've been stabilized and it's in granular form. It's very easy to add to a hot tub. And I know people will say, well, you know what? We've got this great dispenser and it just puts the chlorine or the bromine into the hot tub for me. Well, it's adding bromine or chlorine basically 24 hours a day. Add the chlorine as you need to add it. It doesn't take long. You will get into a routine. You will know, I need to add 3 to 4 tablespoons twice a week, or I need to add 2 tablespoons twice a week. Dip your test strip, check it, add some chlorine. Much healthier. It keeps your chlorine levels much more stable, and believe it or not, it keeps it more stable than these things do, because these are releasing bromine and chlorine all the time, whether the water needs it or not. The tablet is dissolving and it's releasing chlorine or bromine. Now, when it comes to chlorine, there are 2 different types of chlorine, and one is extremely aggressive compared to the other, and it's why I recommend chlorinating granules. This is dichlorchlorine. It's much more gentle on your hot tub than the alternative, which is trichlor. The difference between dichlor and trichlor is that dichlor, like this, can't be had in a tablet form. So if you're using chlorine and it's in a tablet form, you're using trichlor, and it's an extremely aggressive form of chlorine. If it comes into contact with your pillows or anything like that, it's going to damage them. It's going to bleach out any black in your jets. It's just really aggressive, and it's really hard on your tub. Dichlor is a lot more gentle on your tub, and as a matter of fact, there's actually some manufacturers that will void your warranty if you use trichlor. But if you have a sensitivity to chlorine, then your best bet is, again, this stuff. Because if you're using Spa Marvel, your typical levels of chlorine in your hot tub need to be 3 to 5 parts per million of chlorine. If you're using Spa Marvel, you're taking your chlorine levels then down to 1 part per million. So you don't get the fumes, you don't get that bad smell. You don't have to worry about high levels of chlorine in your water that are going to, cause you skin issues or anything like that. You're pretty much at drinking water levels of chlorine. So that's why I always recommend Spa Marble, and use chlorinating granules, 2 to 3 tablespoons a week. Check it on your test strip. If you're not using something like Spa Marble, or preferably Spa Marble itself, then you want to keep your chlorine at 3 to 5 parts per million. If you're using Spa Marble, keep it at around 1 part per million, and that will take care of your sanitizing. Okay, so our water is balanced, and we're using a sanitizer, and we're using our tub. So what's our third step? And it's arguably the most important step, and that is oxidizing. Here's what happens when it comes to sanitizing with chlorine or bromine. Chlorine or bromine, despite popular belief, does not get rid of bacteria. What it does is it attacks the bacteria and forms a new molecule called chloramine. What we want to do is we want to get that chloramine molecule out of the hot tub. So how do we do it? That's what we call oxidizing. And you oxidize with a compound called Spa Shock. Now, there are 2 ways to oxidize the contaminants in your hot tub. You can use a chlorine-based shock, which basically just superchlorinates the water. It puts a high concentration of chlorine into the water. That attacks the chloramine molecule and it gets gassed off. The downside is when you use a chlorine-based shock, you can't use your hot tub until your chlorine levels come down. That can be hours, sometimes it can be overnight. So using a chlorine-based shock, I don't recommend it. I just don't see a point to it. This is a non-chlorine shock, contains a compound called sodium monopersulfate. And yeah, we're going to have a quiz on that. What happens is a non-chlorine shock will still attack the chloramine molecule, but it will split that chloramine molecule into nitrogen gas, which gases off from your tub, and free chlorine. If you have a swimming pool, you know the difference between total chlorine and free chlorine. Well, free chlorine is chlorine that hasn't been converted into a chloramine molecule, so it's still free to do its job. Now, critical, absolutely critical, folks. When you shock your tub, no matter how you do it with chlorine or non-chlorine based shock, open your cover, leave it open for a minimum of 20 minutes. Here's why. As I said, whether you use chlorine based or non-chlorine shock, the shock attacks the chloramine molecule and gasses it off. Now, if your cover is closed, that gas hits the damp underside of your cover, and guess what? It drips right back in your water again. So in order to clean your tub properly, when you oxidize with the shock, leave your cover open for a minimum of 20 minutes. Okay, let's recap. Step 1, and I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I'll put it here now. You want to heat your water to at least 90 degrees, especially if you're using something like Spa Marble. It mixes better, it works better once the water is warmed up. So step 1, heat your water to 90 degrees. Step 2, add your conditioner such as Spa Marble. There are others on the market. I highly recommend Spa Marble, but if you're going to use it, add it at this point, let it circulate for about 20 minutes. Next step, add your calcium hardener. Get your calcium levels up to 1 to 200 parts per million. That will protect your tub. Again, let your water circulate for 20 minutes or so. Okay, next up, test your water with the test strip. If your pH level is low, then you want to increase your alkalinity level to between 80 and 120. On the other hand, if your pH level is normal to high, you want to bring your alkalinity level to between 120 and 150. So whichever the case, add enough alkalinity booster, and it may take a couple of steps and a few checks. Add enough alkalinity booster to bring your alkalinity level to between 80 and 120 or 120 and 150. Depending on your pH level. If your pH again is low, bring it to between 80 and 120. If it's medium to high, bring it to between 120 and 150. Let your water circulate for 20 minutes or so, dip your test strip, and then add enough pH reducer to bring your pH level between 7.2 and 7.8. In rare cases, you will have to add pH increaser, but it's much more common that you would have to add pH reducer to bring your pH level to between 7.2 and 7.6. Again, let your water circulate for 20 minutes or so and add enough, preferably stabilized chlorinating granules, to your hot tub to bring your chlorine levels to between 3 and 5 parts per million. Or if you're using Spa Marvel, again, as we recommend, bring it to about 1 part per million. Again, this might take a couple of tries. You might add 3 or 4 tablespoons, check it, and you may have to add another tablespoon. However much it is, make note of how much you added to it. Because what you're going to do is, once you know how much it took to bring your chlorine levels from where it will probably be 0 to 1 part per million or 3 to 5 parts per million, it will always take that amount of chlorine. So if, let's say it took 4 tablespoons. When you test your water and you want to bring your pH level from 0 to 3 to 5 parts per million, if it took 6 tablespoons last time, it's going to take 6 tablespoons next time. And finally, after every day of use, and this is where people get a little bit confused, because so many containers of shock, it will say on the label to use this amount of shock after every use. You don't need to do it after every use. If you're in the hot tub at 4 p.m. and you're going to get back in the hot tub that night, you can leave it alone, shock it at the end of the day. But most importantly, make sure you leave your cover open for 20 minutes after you add shock to your hot tub. So there you have it, folks. Some tips and tricks to get you started, along with some basics of water chemistry. You should be good to go. Bookmark this page, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so that you can refer to this again if you need to. And take the time and have a look at our in-depth water chemistry, because it will teach you some fundamentals. And that is important because it makes it a lot easier for you to learn the things that you need to do. You'll know instinctively what you need to do if you get cloudy water or green water. Or, Junior takes the dog in the hot tub. And when a dog hits water, by the way, the first thing to do is empty their bladder. But it will let you deal with those things, because you'll be able to look at your water and say, yeah, I just stock it a little bit, or it needs some more chlorine, or it looks like the pH is too high or too low. When you understand the fundamentals, a lot of those things become easier. So check out that video. But thanks for watching and have a great day. Again, it's Bill, and this is Hot Tub University.